the spinach.
Yeah.
All right, we're good to go.
So let me just start. I remember growing up.
Yeah.
I remember growing up and starting to wonder about sex, and I tried to ask my mom some questions about sex, and I remember the first time I asked her, you know, how are babies made? And she just, go ask your father. So, okay, I'll go ask my father. So we were driving in the car, and I asked my dad, Dad, how are babies made? And our cat, Lucky, had just had kittens, so he described the whole process in terms of my cat. And he said, well, Lucky has a vagina, and the cat up the street
said that?
Yes,
Get out of here.
he did. He was embarrassed, but he's driving, so he's looking straight ahead, and he's saying, well, Lucky has a vagina, and the cat up the street
Surprised I knew that word.
has a penis, and they put it together and they make babies. And I remember thinking, I've never seen a vagina on Lucky. Like, I've seen under her tail, and I was very little. I was probably second or third grade when I started to think about these things. And then when I was in 5th grade, I found this book in the basement, and there's still some debate as to whether it was a nursing book from when my mom was in nursing school or what, but I was so infatuated and entranced by it. I read it front to back in one afternoon, and I learned everything.
Did your mom know that you got hold of the book?
Nope.
I knew. It was like I knew. I was very young, and I knew somehow that these topics were off limit. You know, if jokes were being told, the kids were asked to leave the room. If there was, you know, naughty scenes in a movie, our eyes were covered or we were asked to leave the room. So I was always curious about what these adults were talking about and why I couldn't know it. So I knew growing up that it was like a secret and something I couldn't know about yet because I was too young. Mm-hmm. So it became something that I was like, I wanted to know what they were talking about. You know, I wanted to understand, even though I was so young.
So not getting information about it made you even more intrigued.
Yeah,
by it.
Definitely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did you ever think about sitting down and doing the kind of facts? Did you ever have the Facts of Life talk at home?
No.
Okay, so there's no talk.
I went to Catholic schools. You didn't even say the word sex.
Okay.
I mean, you never saw a nun's ankle, for crying out loud. You saw this much of her face and her habit. Mm-hmm. So that's how we were at my house. Mm-hmm. I learned from my girlfriend down the street. Mm-hmm. When Grandma Jane was pregnant with Uncle Michael, and the girl down the street told me just about how it was done, and I could look at my mother's face when I went home. So that's what I thought about when my kids were little, especially when this one is so insistent on knowing things. I'm thinking, oh, I'm not ready for this. I can't do this. So that's when I said, go ask your father, but not realizing he did tell you. So no, we didn't talk about anything like that.
How did it change things when you knew? What happened then? I mean, you're pretty little at this point.
It was still like like the elephant in the room. Like, if she knew I knew, we still didn't talk about it. And if I knew that she knew that I knew, we still didn't talk about it. And I remember being in 8th grade and like kind of getting where I wanted to tell my mom like about kissing boys and that I was interested in boys. And I remember I brought up that I kissed a boy, and she just got so upset, like she just thought I was too young to be doing this.
Well, I was probably a little taken aback because then I knew what next steps were going to have to take place, and I wasn't ready for that.
So again, I learned, okay, I can't tell my mom. You know, I can't talk to her about this. This is something I just talk about with my friends. It's not something I could go to her about. You know, and then again, when I went on birth control for my period, my mom brought me to the gynecologist and explained what I was having problems with, and the doctor suggested I go on birth control pills. So I went on, and we're on the way home, and my mom tells me, now this doesn't mean you can get all sexually active now. And I remember again being like, you know, getting the message, cannot tell mom when I'm gonna have sex. It's gotta be a secret, you know? And I remember being in college, after I took my first human sexuality course, talking to my mom about it and like asking her why, and she told me I was just so afraid that if I told you the information, it was going to make you do it. But I mean, not having the information and having the information, I still found out, you know, from friends, from the back of the bus, from the Wonder of Life book that I found, from our sex ed classes at school. I got the information anyhow. Whether or not it impacted me to have sex early or not, I don't know. I was in a relationship in high school that was pretty committed, and when we were ready, we decided to have sex. Unbeknownst to my parents, I don't know when or what you were thinking was going on, but
Did you have any idea?
Nope, and I'm trying to think of the exact time when I said something to you or I asked you a question, and it wasn't, she didn't even say anything. Her face just went, and I knew, like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God.
oh, I remember that story a little differently. I remember.
Maybe I just blocked it out.
I remember we were in high school. My boyfriend had just left the house, and I came sit on the couch, and there was like, make sure the door is open when he's in your room. There was like rules like that.
Your father is the one that suggested stuff like that too.
Okay, well, he never said anything. But I remember after my boyfriend had left, I'd come upstairs, and you said something to me, and I was like, oh, you asked me, are you guys having sex? And I was like, no. And then I went to the bathroom, and I was thinking, maybe this is a good time for my mom and I to like talk about it and get close. So I remember, I went up, I'm like, well, Mom, when was the first time you had sex? And that's none of your business. So I knew, again, that this was not a topic for us to talk about,
Right.
And my mom obviously didn't think I was ready, even if I did think I was ready. She didn't think I was ready, so it was just not something we talked about. Mm-hmm. And then going into college, like with him visiting me up at school, I think you had to know by then.
I figured as much.
Because if, he was sleeping over, like the questions stopped. I didn't get any more questions once I was in college, but it was like an assumption. Mm-hmm. And then once I think honestly, when I took my first human sexuality course, and my parents, why are you taking this course? And I was like, well, because I'm interested in it. And I think at that point it made the topic come up more freely in our house. It was different. It was like, I call it the sexual revolution in our own house, because we went
Not
from.
that I was any more comfortable with it.
You're much more comfortable now.
Oh yeah.
Can't you tell? But it changed. Like, my mom was able to joke with us. Like, my dad is very funny, and he would say these jokes and not think that we heard, but he'll make jokes about this. Will he talk about it with us? No, but it changed things.
Do you remember the time when you and Eddie we were driving up the street, and we were talking about whose mother, like Grandma Claire is Daddy's mother, Grandma Jane is my mother, and she decided to tell Eddie a little bit about the facts of life, and he couldn't have been any more than, 4?
Oh, I know
Whose
what you're
mother
talking
was
about.
whose and how it...
I was asking you, so Grandma Jane is your mommy, and Daddy was in Grandma Claire's belly.
Right. And when my son heard that, mind you, he was still in a car seat, so he had to have been around 4, he just yelled out, Grandma Claire ate Daddy? I almost went off the road. I had to pull over, and I'm like, Lisa, this is not the time to talk about this stuff right now.
So, I grew up in a house where we didn't talk about sex.
Nobody talked about sex in my house. And I even asked Grandma Jane, and what they learned about sex, they learned how, Lisa?
From the farm animals.
Peeking through the knotholes. Yay.
Right. That's
So,
really good. You're really doing it, and I don't want you to feel at all that this is anything about you, because it's not. This is about American culture. This is the way most parents in our generation raised kids. I mean, that's just the way it is. I mean, you were scared of it. We taught kids to be scared of it. And I love how you ended it right there on, this is how we didn't talk about sex. I mean, I think we can wrap it. I thought it was really good. Is there anything else we need? Anything else? And I like how you brought it back to, she was scared to death that I would do it if she told me about it. Because that's what it's all about. I think that, but it's funny that we teach kids about smoking and pot,
Yeah.
but not sex. My son knows more about drugs than I've ever learned in my life, because they learn it in DARE. But
Well, just like in school now, they teach sex education. They didn't have that in Catholic schools. Like I said, you don't even say the word.
I think too, because they were misinformed or
Or not informed.
Not informed. So how can you teach somebody about something that you don't really know a lot about.
Right.
It's almost like you're afraid to give the wrong information.
And you don't know where to go to get the right information.
Yeah.
I mean, later on, I mean, where do you go? The internet, that's not a great place either.
Yeah.
So,
And that's true. Like I was growing up right around the time when the internet, you know, my parents weren't savvy enough to know what to monitor. Like we knew more about the internet than they did.
Right.
So
We still do.
we do. But like, so they didn't know that if I wanted to look up something or see naughty pictures, like I could do it, you know, and I knew there was no parental controls. So I was able to access
Well, we
information.
did trust you, you know.
I know
We
you
trusted you not to do stuff like that.
But, you know, nowadays they have, you know, kids monitoring, their TVs
see,
are
I don't
monitored.
do that. I mean, I don't do that in our computer. I trust my kids.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't even
talk
know they
to.
knew what websites to go to. How
Right.
did you even know how to do that?
You just plug in oral sex or
Yep.
whatever. We don't have to film anymore. I think we're good.
Okay.
Do you
Well,
think?
can you just say like your sign off thing? Like thanks for coming
okay.
and talking to me.
Thank you so much for talking to me today. I know it might not have been the easiest conversation, but a really important one to hear. So thanks very much.
Thank you.
I'll hold it for like 10 seconds so I have stuff to like
Okay.
edit the audio with.
Okay.
So you want me to do it again?
No, just hold like silent for like 10 seconds. Okay, that's good.
So good.